Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason and I'm here to bring you the fight picks for UFC 247, where John Bones Jones, or John Pico Jones as we call him around here, is going to be taking on Dominic Reyes, the Devastator, in what will be an exciting light heavyweight championship bout taking place in Houston, Texas. On the co-main, we also have Valentina Shevchenko taking on Caitlin Chookagian for the ladies flyweight title. We got a great night of fights in for us. Let's get into it. Here's the show. Alright, so let's get into the main event where John Bones Jones is going to be taking on Dominic Reyes. So, I'm going to say it right now. I believe that John Jones gets it done here, but I do have a caveat. John Jones is not winning on all of my metrics. There is one where Dominic Reyes is winning. So, I upfront want to say this. This ultimately, I think, is a gambling picks podcast. And so, right now, the odds on Dominic Reyes are plus 325. I can see them going down from there. I could also see them going up a bit. It really depends on how people feel this fight's going to go after watching the embeddeds and everything leading up to the ultimate title shot on Saturday. And so if the money starts to swing better into Reyes' favor, that 1 out of 3 chance on my metrics, I might personally go with, especially if we're talking the plus 400, plus 500 territory for Dominic Reyes as an underdog. Now, if it slips lower and we're starting to talk about plus 200 area, I gotta say, don't chance it up front. But right now, plus 325, it's not bad. I would just like it a little bit sweeter because ultimately, I've said it here before, the only guy that beats John Jones is John Jones. He beats himself, and he hasn't done that in quite a while. He's looking phenomenal. So John Jones, ever since he came back with the Alexander Gustafsson fight, has put on great performances. He dominated Gustafsson, getting the KO in the third round, really showing his stuff, especially in the second and third rounds. Coming back, dominating Anthony Smith. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't stop it, via TKO. Anthony Smith had absolutely nothing for him. And then I'm going to put it bluntly, he survived a very tight contest with Thiago Santos. He really respected Thiago's power, and the injuries obviously kind of hampered Thiago there, where he wasn't able to excel at his Muay Thai kickboxing game. Either way, John Jones came out on top. And John Jones always seems to come out on top, and I don't think this is going to be any different. Dominic Reyes is a good striker. He's got a nasty left hand. Ask guys like Weidman about it. Ask guys like Jared Cannonier. But Dominic Reyes is not going to be able to get inside of that 7-inch reach advantage and put on that boxing performance that we've seen him do time and again against the likes of John Jones. John Jones is too lanky. He's too good at measuring distance. He's too patient to engage, where I don't think he's going to be able to catch Jones coming inside on him to chase Reyes down. The only time Jones is going to come inside to chase you is when you're already on the ropes and hope is nigh that you can win that fight. You're going to be rocked. It's going to be like when he kicked Daniel Cormier in the head. He charged in and shut the door because he has that super high fight IQ. Does that mean Dominic Reyes couldn't catch him? No, everybody's susceptible to being caught. I just don't see Reyes doing it. Reyes is, I don't want to say a one-trick pony with his striking. His kickboxing ability is very high, but so is John Jones. And if we start to look at the full embodiment of what MMA is, having ground game, good clinch work, grinding on the cage, having submission ability, all of that, once we get past kickboxing, goes very heavily towards the side of John Jones. His takedown rate is phenomenal. John's takedown rate is 1.9 per 15 minutes, and even though Reyes has decent takedown defense, he hasn't fought a really whole lot of wrestlers, with the exception of Weidman, who he was able to knock out very early because he's a bit chinny these days. Old Weidman probably performs a little bit better, and he was also 185er at that point too, but the way Weidman's chin has been lately, he couldn't really get to the affair where he could wrestle. And then you look at the guys of Ozdemir, Ovince St. Preux, Jared Cannonier, those are all heavy strikers, and he's running into a guy who is a top-tier grappler in John Jones. So I just don't like Reyes' chances here. However, 1 out of 3 metrics, like I said, do have the Devastator picking up a win. And not really, well, I can tell you exactly why he's winning, but I'm not going to here. I'll keep that one close to my chest. but there's a small sliver of hope, and it really comes down to that, I think, lottery element of clipping somebody with a good shot. It could have been Thiago Santos, and it could be Dominic Reyes. Jones could get clipped, he could get caught, he could get cocky, and, it really just depends on how things play out. I just ultimately don't like Reyes in this one, at least for the current money. As we start to talk about, bigger and bigger odds on Reyes, if things start to come down that way, I would probably go that route just to take a chance. But for the time being, where things sit, even at plus 325, I'm still taking Jon Bones Jones. All right, moving on to the co-main event. This is definitely the second best fight on the entire card. I think we have an exciting night of fights, but as far as name brands are concerned, these are really your two eye-catchers on the marquee, right? Valentina Shevchenko, the Bullet, taking on Katlyn Chookagian. And in this one, I got to be honest, I think it's all Shevchenko here. I think we're really just building to a noon Shevchenko 3 matchup. I don't think that Chookagian is going to be able to outstrike her, and I don't think she's going to be able to outgrapple her. Chookagian is, for all, intents and purposes, a points fighter. 13 wins, 2 losses, 2 knockouts, and 1 submission. So she's only shut the door 3 times out of 15 fights. Now, when she's lost, she's also only lost by decision, so she's never been knocked out or submitted. But the leap in talent from the rest of the 125 women's pool to get up to Shevchenko is just a giant leap. It's like young Jon Jones just clearing out the light heavyweight division against older guys like Glover Teixeira and Shogun Rua. There was just a gap in talent there on the way up for Jones, and I think it's the same thing for Shevchenko. She is a dominant champion that can do everything very well at a higher level than all of the competition can do right now. Does it mean she'll be able to do that forever? No. Everybody's time does come to an end, but really, besides Amanda Nunes, she's the best woman in all of MMA, or at least the UFC, and I don't think Chookagian's going to be able to do anything. Chookagian has not had a stoppage since she was actually outside of the UFC back in 2016, and she's been decision point fighting her entire way up. And she lost to fighters that Nunes beat handily, Jessica Ai and Liz Carmouche. Granted, both split decisions, and MMA math we know doesn't work, but I don't think Chookagian has the talent and the depth to go up against Shevchenko. The best guess I can say that I think would give Shevchenko a big problem is if somehow Katlyn Chookagian cardio was so good that she could somehow gas Shevchenko and take her into deep waters. But I don't think this is the case. I don't think that Shevchenko is going to be dragging at deep waters. I don't think Chookagian has big enough gas tank to do that, and I don't see her getting it done. Her striking is too sloppy. Her grappling is just not as efficient or proficient, and I just don't see any avenue for victory other than just a swinging puncher's chance that Katlyn Chookagian gets it done here. And that's no offense to Chookagian. It's just like I said, the talent pool is just too shallow, and then you get a steep drop off to the deep end. It's like going off a cliff, and that's where Shevchenko lives. She's the monster under the bridge at 125 pounds, and she's going to kill any little billy goat that tries to cross her way. And yes, I just called Katlyn Chookagian a billy goat. Anyways, I think we are picking Shevchenko. She's the 125-pound goat, and I'm looking forward to her fight in July, where I expect noon Shevchenko 3 to be co-main lining, or at least be on, the somewhere in the co-main for Usman versus Masvidal. So I'm calling it. Shevchenko picks it up, and the money on her is bad. Don't touch it. Shevchenko all day. All right, in the next one here, we have a couple of green heavyweights. We have Juan the Kraken Adams taking on Justin Tafa. So not a whole lot I can say here. We got a 5-2 fighter who has 2 losses in a row, going up against Justin Tafa, who's 3-1, coming off a loss to Yorgan de Castro that was in his UFC debut. So really tough one to call here. I ultimately have Adams. I think that his striking output just looks superior. I think that he can probably catch Tafa, who, we know I don't know if you got a chin if you get knocked out at heavyweight, but we've seen him get knocked out, though we have seen Adams get knocked out too. So maybe it's kind of a weird place or road to go down. But I think while Adams, he's fought some really great talent in Greg Hardy. That was his last loss, and he took a decision loss before that. I think he's ready to make a statement, get another win in the UFC. He proved he can fight at this level on the Dana White Contender Series. had a TKO on his debut, and he's just been derailed by a little bit of talent on the way up. I'm hoping that he's learned, that he's become a better fighter, and I think Tafa really is just a product because they needed a Oceania fighter from Australia, and I think that's the only reason he's found himself in the UFC. Not to crap on his talents too much. He wouldn't be here unless he deserved to be here, but he's a 3-1 heavyweight. Probably still belongs in the regional circuit, and I think that Juan Adams gets it done here. We are picking Juan Adams to pick up the W in Houston. All right, dark horse of the night, Mirsad Bektic versus Dan Dynamite Ige. This is going to be a phenomenal contest, and I'm going to tell you why Bektic gets it done. First off, tri-star fighter, trains with Firas Zahabi. Nothing against Ige over at Extreme Couture, but I like Bektic more so training over there. Now, we know Bektic, he has taken a couple of losses. He's lost to some talents like Darren Elkins and Josh Emmett. Real, veteran in the case of Elkins, cream of the cropper, in my opinion, in Josh Emmett. And we know that Ige is looking really good right now. Kevin Aguiar, Danny Henry, Jordan Griffin, he's also looking really good. But I don't think he's going to get it done. I think his 4-fight winning streak here is going to be snapped, and he's going to end up taking a loss. I think the numbers here shake out just a little bit better for Bektic. He looks like he's just a little bit better superior grappler, and we know that Ige likes to shoot, he likes to get takedowns, and his striking is there, but I think the defense and the ranginess, the way, his movement, really, his footwork, I think Bektic's going to be able to stuff takedowns, evade the striking, and put on some good counter shots to potentially pick up a stoppage to this fight. We know that he has 6 KOs and 3 submissions over his 13 wins, and he's just got a little bit better closure rate than Ige, who's 3 KOs and 5 submissions. With that takedown defense, I think it's really going to shut the door to that submission game, and I think that we're going to see Bektic's defense come through here, and we're just not going to see Ige land at the same rate that he normally does. I am picking Mirsad Bektic, the Firas Zahabi product, in this matchup. All right, the better fight now at heavyweight. I don't know why this one isn't a little higher on the card. We have Derek the Black Beast, my balls are hot Lewis, taking on Ilir Latifi, the Sledgehammer. So before I get on and just tell you how I think that Derek Lewis gets it done here and he's the better combatant, I just want to say, Ilir Latifi, this is his debut at 205, and that boy is looking thick. I mean, he was thick at 205. At heavyweight, I have no idea what this guy's going to step on the scales like. He could be right up there as a brick shit house. I mean, he's cut. Derek Lewis is a little sloppy of a 265, right? He makes weight, but he's not the cuttest, the most cut guy out there. Latifi is built like a shithouse. He's a cut looking 240, and we just got to keep that in our back pocket here in our mind. If this guy was, wearing his body down to make 205, and he's naturally a killer, even though he's 5'8", a killer at heavyweight, 265 max. I just want to put that out there. We could see Latifi win. Now, if Latifi is going to win, it's probably going to be with a stand-up. I think Derek Lewis, unless your name's Daniel Cormier, he doesn't really get taken down too much, and he likes to swing and bang. Now, Lewis is a big man. He does have the reach advantage here, so I could see him getting rangy, but Latifi is an explosive guy, and he could potentially get inside what I think are sometimes a little bit lazy, slow shots out of Lewis. That 6-second reach advantage could come in handy, but if Latifi explodes in, gets in the pocket, it could be trouble for Lewis, who I think needs to utilize that range because of his lack of speed. And, also the weight difference for Latifi will be a little slower than we've seen in the past. It's all really hard to say, but keep it in your back pocket there. Latifi making his heavyweight debut could make a little bit of a change of things because the only numbers I have are his light heavyweight numbers. So I ultimately am going to pick Lewis here, but grain of salt situation, don't overlook Latifi. If you're feeling it, go for it. I think it's a okay gamble to make, much like we were talking about Reyes earlier. That being said, though, all metrics did point to Lewis, so also keep that in mind, too. Either way, picking Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, his bowels be hot. Oh, one more thing as well. He is also the hometowner. The guy does fight out of Houston, Texas, so keep that in mind as well. He is the hometowner in this situation. All right, moving on to the next. Okay, in the next one here, we are going to have Trevin, the Problem Giles, taking on Antonio Arroyo. And in this one, I think that it is going to go mostly down the middle. It's kind of a tough call to make, but I am going to go with Giles. The problem in this one, I think he's just a little bit better fighter, and I think he's just run into some guys with just some really, really high-level grappling ability in Gerald Meerschaert and Zach Cummings. I think he wants to strike. I think he wants to stand and bang, and even though Arroyo is a relatively balanced fighter, I think that we will actually get that situation here. I think that Arroyo, he likes to strike. He does like takedowns, but he likes to strike. He's more willing to enter the pocket than a guy like Gerald Meerschaert and take a stand-up fight, where I think that Giles has the advantage. Bear in mind, though, if this thing does go to the mat, having been choked out twice in a row now, he might be a little gun shy, and he might, hopefully he's actually just worked on the game, be it takedown defense, or just grappling defense in general. Although one of those was the guillotine, so I have to assume he got caught coming in. But hopefully he's worked on that side of the game. He's prepared for it. We know that his striking ability is there. He had back-to-back KOs coming into his fight with Zach Cummings, so his knockout potential is there. His winning potential is there. He's only ever been submitted, and I think that Arroyo might have trouble with that. If he's wants to stand like I think he does. I think that Giles ultimately gets it done here. He is our pick in Houston. In our next one here, we're going to have a ladies flyweight matchup in what should be a pretty interesting one. We have kind of a veteran, I don't know about quite pioneer, but definitely veteran of the game in Lauren Lucky Murphy taking on Andrea KGB Lee. So when I say veteran, I look back at Murphy's career. She fought Sarah McMahon, Liz Carmouche earlier in her career back in 2014, 2015. She was undefeated coming into that fight with McMahon, coming out of Invicta back in 2013. She looked like a really hot product, and she, just happened to get derailed right away in her UFC career. But we know that she can bring it. She just defeated Mara Barella, and, even though she's been on and off with losses to like Shikagian and Sijara Eubanks, I think she could get it done here. It's just that, not to go too far one direction, but I am ultimately picking here Andrea Lee. I think that Andrea Lee here is a younger, better fighter. She had a similar issue, we'll say. She came into the UFC, did actually pick up a good string of wins, then recently lost to some really high-end talent in Joanne Calderwood in a very, very close fight. But I think that Andrea Lee is capable of bouncing back better than Murphy ever was able to, because that Calderwood fight, I think, really could have gone either way, and I actually kind of thought it was Lee in that one, looking back to September on the Khabib Poirier card. And I think that Lee gets it done here. I think that she's a little bit better than Murphy everywhere. I think she's a better modern MMA fighter coming in at 30 years of age, and I think that she's going to be able to get it done. So I am pretty confidently picking Andrea KGB Lee. All right, so I think what we have here in our next contest with Miles Johns and Mario Batista is a classic grappler versus striker situation. Mario Batista, very fast hands, very high striking output. Miles Johns, decent hands, decent output, but it's his takedown game that I think excels here against a guy who hasn't really proven himself as a, takedown stopper just yet. He's only coming in at a 57% takedown defense rate, and we know Johns has a very high defense rate of himself at 85%. So I think ultimately when I look at the numbers here, the 10-0 record of Johns, the ability to score takedowns while also eating a couple shots, throwing some out there in his own, I think that Johns ultimately gets it done here. I think he continues his undefeated streak. Both guys train at very good gyms, Fortis MMA Lab, near equal there. It's a very tight, close matchup. But I think ultimately here, we just are going to get Miles Johns. He's coming to the UFC, a little shaky, decision in the Dana White Contender Series, and then a split decision coming in into the, UFC Cowboy Gaethje card. You got the split there against Cole Smith. And I think that he ends up defeating Mario Batista in this one. Bear in mind, Mario Batista did run into a problem when he fought Corey Sandhagen in his debut. So one of those losses definitely is against a guy who's like the best in the biz right now for young prospects. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Ultimately, though, I got to go with Miles Johns here. I think he's just a little bit better fighter, especially if he can exploit that takedown game. So we are picking Miles Johns in this bantamweight matchup. All right, next one here. As we get down on the card here, it's a little hard to come up with color commentary over the numbers, but we got Domingo Pilarte taking on Journey Newson in what should be a good bantamweight matchup. Both these guys look fairly even, 8-2, 9-2 for Newson. Both of them coming in very equally. 2 KOs and 4 submissions for Pilarte, 3 KOs and 3 submissions for Newson. Both of them coming off of losses here, so it's very close. Ricardo Ramos was the loss for Newson, and we had Felipe Corrales as the loss for Pilarte. Both of them came into the UFC pretty hot, though. Dana White Contender Series win for Pilarte, FFC Fighting Championship for Newson. And I just think they're really evenly matched fighters here. I ultimately got to make a pick. I'm going to go with Pilarte based on the numbers here. I like him a little bit better. I think he's a little more well-rounded, even though both guys are fairly well-rounded. And I don't think it's too crazy. They're both even 30 years of age. It's just a split down the middle pick here, and I'm just going to side with the numbers ultimately and go with Domingo Pilarte. He is the pick. All right, and the next one here, another bantamweight fight. And this one is one of my few underdog picks of the night that is legitimate. We have Jonathan Martinez taking on Andre Ewell. I just want to look up these numbers real quick because I think that they could be worth taking advantage of. So let's see here. Let's see. Alex Morono. Jonathan Martinez. Oh, no. Numbers have swung a little bit. He's now a minus 105. He's still an underdog, but they have really come down a little bit closer in this fight. So we're not going to be able to really exploit an underdog in this situation like I was hoping we'd be able to. So we're still going to go Jonathan Martinez in this one. I think he's the better fighter. I think Vegas is starting to realize this. That's why he came out of the plus territory and back into the minus territory. Still slight underdog, but this is really close down the middle with Ewell coming in at a minus 125 himself. So Vegas hardly knows who's going to win, and if you want to play, you got to pay the VIG is the way that they are playing out with this right now. When we look over at Andre Ewell, his loss last came to Marlon Vera. I believe he was supposed to be on this card and was unfortunately injured. No, his opponent was injured. Maybe it was Jimmy Rivera. I can't recall at this point. But Marlon Vera is off this card. But that was the last loss here for Andre Ewell. When I look over at Martinez, coming back-to-back wins with the knee against Ping Yong Lu and a loss to Sokum Top back in 2018 with he's fighting a lot of Asian fighters, Wu Jibarin and Ping Yong Lu. So, not that it has anything to do with it. It's kind of a interesting observation. I ultimately got to go to Martinez here. Even though Ewell is a long, lanky fighter, I think Martinez gets inside on him. I think he's able to execute some really crisp boxing and get it done in his, style of knockouts, coming in with 6 over his 11 wins. We are ultimately picking the Dragon, Jonathan Martinez, in this matchup. Then we have 2 debuters, so not too much to say about here. I'm not going to overcome with color when I hardly know anything about the guys. But we're going to have Alex Morono take on Kalen Williams. And so this one is an interesting fight. I think ultimately I'm going to go with the debuter here. We've seen Alex Morono perform pretty well lately, but for the available data, I'm going to go with the upset here with Kalen Williams picking up a win. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to win. He's coming off 6 straight wins, whereas Alex Morono is coming off 3 against all top-tier talent, Kenyon Song, Zach Otto, and Max Griffin. It's just that the debut numbers don't shake out that well, and the undefeated, or 9-1 fighter rather, Kalen Chaos the Ox fighter, that's an interesting name, I think it comes out on top here. He may also be a slight underdog. Let's take a look here. We need William, where is he? Plus 200, so that might be worth taking a shot on. But I am probably overdoing it because these are supposed to be on Patreon, right? So I like him in this one. I think he gets it done. And then in the last matchup, Austin Lingo versus Youssef Zalal, I am ultimately taking Lingo in that one. I think he's the little bit better fighter. Both guys came out of LFA, though. They probably just kind of missed each other on the way up, and I think this is the way for the UFC to play out kind of a dream LFA bout with both of them looking really good. Obviously, Lingo looked a little bit better coming into the UFC as he's undefeated, whereas Zalal had 2 losses. So we'll see how things play out. I do expect Lingo to continue his unbeaten streak, though, and pick up a win in his UFC debut. So those are the picks for UFC 247. So let's go over them one more time. We have Jones, Shevchenko, Adams, Bektic, Lewis, Giles, Lee, Johns, Pilarte, Martinez, William, and Lingo. So that rounds us out for the event. So let's see, where do things stand? We'll obviously be coming back with the retrospective. There is a beer review that just came out, the Oma Gang Fire and Blood review that I put out. My wife is also on that, so it's a little bit different if you're looking for something a little different. And please write the Fighting Spirit Podcast at fightingspiritpodcast@gmail.com. Please get in touch with us on Twitter, YouTube comments, whatever you like, Facebook, email, get in touch with us, whatever you like. And there's also the Patreon as well. So if you wish to support the show in any way, please head on over there, get some of my fight picks, maybe get your name read on the show, some kind of call sign, advertisement, whatever you like. Support the show at the dollar amount that makes the most sense to you. So, all right, like I said, I'll be back with the retrospective coming on Saturday, or more than likely Sunday. These things get out pretty late. So Sunday morning, be on the lookout for it. And until then, happy fight picking.